Okay, so hello, I am Dr. Raquel, and welcome to another episode of Best Life Abroad, Not Your Average Travel Podcast. So today, I am joined by Lydia Copeland, who is a travel blogger and author. She focuses on travel skills and helping people learn to travel. So we wanted to say thank you so much to Lydia for joining us today. And first, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you became passionate about helping people explore and move to new locations.
Of course, yeah, no, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Thank you. For work, I do data analytics and report development. So a ton of fun, like technical data work. But I'm originally actually from Pittsburgh, and my undergrad was in agriculture and animal science. So I grew up in a rural area. I had an awesome family that really encouraged me to kind of like explore and learn more. And the one thing they sparked my interest in was travel.
Mhm.
My grandma, even though we lived in a rural area, loved baking international foods all the time. Like loved it. She always had like a travel show on or like something where we could learn or learn something new about food or cultural travel. So for me, that was like my first little bit of exposure. And then luckily, once I got a little bit older, I was able to finally start traveling and seeing the world. So even though I did start traveling, I'm assuming relative to other people a little bit later. So like in my 20s, I started being able to travel more. It took me some time to learn how. I didn't feel like I had all the resources. I didn't know where to start. So as I started learning, I was like, you know what? I want to make it easier for other people. So I started my travel blog. I published my travel handbook in 2023. And my goal has just been like, how do I make travel more accessible to people? How do I make it something where you can learn the basics and the things you didn't think you needed to know so that you can have a successful trip? I really feel like everyone deserves to travel. It's such an amazing experience that we all should have.
I love that so much. And I could not agree more, obviously. I just think first of all, yes to grandma for cooking.
Right?
Just this morning, I had my Schwäbisch German cookbook out, and my son and I were like
Oh,
recipes like, okay, so we want to do this one next, and then so I love that. And like even if you're not able to travel physically, but like still stay connected to the world, I love that so much.
yeah,
And you see what that has done. It's like planted seeds for you as well to be like, okay, well, I ate this with my grandma, so maybe I can go to that place to go eat that from where it originated.
yeah, 100%. I love doing that. It's been wild, and every time I do it, I think of her. Oh my goodness, it's so amazing.
I want to be that grandma. I love that. Wow. And
Yeah.
so if we talk a little bit about like someone who's interested in scoping out a move abroad, why do you think it is so helpful for people to visit a place for an extended period before they are making that decision to move to that place?
Yeah. So, I work from home, so I love this question because I think today in the world we're in, people are looking to move new places, whether it be for work or for jobs or for fun, and I absolutely love that. Um, I think it's really important to kind of change your mind as a traveler if you're looking to move somewhere for a new move, because I think it's important to really pivot from tourist to actually feeling like you could be a part of that community.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So one thing that I always share too is that, when you go somewhere for a shorter period of time, you're still on the, oh, yay, this is fun. This is exciting. But once you're there for like a more extended period of time, you allow yourself to settle and those emotions to settle a little bit
Hmm.
on the like adrenaline of the newness. To be like, okay, I am so tired of having to recycle all these things. Like,
Right? Or how do I find my favorite thing? This is broken. Where in the world do I go to get it? Or hey, I got a parking ticket and I have no absolutely what. what to do. I agree. You need to be there for a longer period of time to really fully experience a place and really, I'll say, enjoy those realities.
Enjoy those realities. That's such a nice way. That is such a nice way to put it. You are just bringing me flashbacks. Like I remember one time I got a parking ticket in
You
while we were living in Belgium, and I was like, first of all, I don't even know what this says.
right?
Secondly, I have no idea where I was parked. Thirdly, it has my license plate in a picture, so I'm me. But I don't even know what this is, where this is, how do I pay this?
Mhm.
Like, uh, yes, yeah, the opportunity to have those. Yep. Yes. And also, are there like common misconceptions that you think people have about moving abroad? Like after spending time, they might be able to alleviate some of those misconceptions.
100%. I think, of course, the first thing that comes to people's mind is safety. Oh, I've heard all these horrible things. I could never live there. I mean, even traveling somewhere new, you get that feedback from people. One of the places that people told me not to go to, but I'm so happy I did, was actually Naples, Italy.
Mhm.
I heard so much pushback. Oh, it's dirty. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Oh, people are mean. I had the most amazing time ever.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, just because I love history, of course, I understand the state of the infrastructure and why it is the way it is. And also, it's a huge city. Of course, with its being thousands of years old, it's not going to be pristine and beautiful, but it was packed with so much culture and the people had so much hospitality. And just me personally, I really appreciated the like seeing more racial diversity in Naples versus Northern Italy, to be honest, because we did a whole tour. So I loved Naples.
Mhm.
Um, but that's something that I think a lot of people are afraid of. Oh, the people are mean, or oh, they're not gonna like me, or oh, you know what, this is just gonna be too difficult. But um, don't worry, someone's done it before you.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's so interesting too that you bring up Naples because I never thought about it, but I got the same feedback. Like,
Mhm.
it's not very safe. It's not the nicest city of Italy, and I had a great time in Naples.
Mhm.
Wonderful. And you're right. The people were so hospitable. And I love too that you mentioned the history because I think that's something that is so important that oftentimes people glance over.
Yeah.
So, when you think about marketing about different places around the world, oftentimes there is a very specific image of who is
Yeah.
traveling to those places.
Hmm.
One of the reasons why I like to highlight like Black history in Europe because I'm like, we
Love
are
that.
around and through Europe. But if you just look at like marketing of Europe, you oftentimes don't see Black faces in the marketing.
Hmm.
And so understanding history, I think, is so important because if you want to know like what people might think about you and your identity, the best way to get a snapshot of that is through history. Like even thinking of the United States, like
Hmm.
US history totally impacts the way that we function today. Whoever says it doesn't is lying to our face. Impossible. Like our own personal history is
Right?
who we are today. So how as
100%.
could that not be a thing? And so understanding historical influences, and that can be for the better or for the worse. Like
Yeah.
countries could have done horrible things in the past, and now they make a conscious, intentional effort to make sure that never happens again.
Yeah.
They could have done horrible, terrible things in the past, and they're still doing them. So
Yeah.
it's important for us to understand like how does the history of any given place impact present day, what happens there. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, definitely.
And what are some things, like some key things that people should focus on when they're doing these exploratory visits?
Yeah. I think just making sure that you are aligned with that, being part of the community versus a tourist. So that's going to be okay when you're researching the place, make sure you understand like the weather, make sure that you understand kind of the different neighborhoods, and of course, be mindful of their safety. Make sure that you kind of poke around in local news. And I love to check, and even before when I go to travel somewhere, I love to watch local news the week before because sometimes it'll highlight some weather issues or oh we're getting ready for this snowstorm or oh we're getting ready for a train strike. Um, I love just poking around in local news before I go to anywhere for a trip. And then also too, especially specifically preparing for a move, you want to poke around in like local government, your taxes, but also to focus on like your main amenities you need and connecting to those amenities where you're looking to go. I mean, I like to be outdoors a lot and I have a dog. So, and we love to travel with him. So finding those connections are really important to me if I'm scoping out a new city.
Local news. I love that idea.
Mhm.
I think I will be implementing myself.
They have all the tea.
Yeah, I love it. And then let's talk a little bit about money.
Oh yeah, I love it.
So, people who are, in my conversations that I've had, people who are more concerned about the financial aspects of travel really oftentimes struggle with, like, well, how do I know how to budget? How do I even
Mm.
approach creating a budget for these like exploratory visits? Any recommendations for that?
Yeah. I think if you're planning to go to a new city, take your existing everyday spending and make sure that you pair it with that cost relative to the new city you might be exploring. So, like, okay, I pay rent here. Okay, I have to check and see what average rents are. Okay, I have a phone here. Okay, how am I going to plan for phone service? Okay, I have public transportation or I have a car. Okay, how am I going to plan for that when I'm exploring my new city? So again, really taking a snapshot of what your current budget or your current spends are and kind of mirroring that to a new place, I think is a great place to start.
That's really great. And it reminds me of one of my favorite, like cost of living comparison tools is called Numbeo,
Ooh.
NBEO. And what I love about Numbeo is that like I can say, okay, I live in North Carolina. I'm moving to Belgium. This is how much I spend typically on, we'll say, wine.
Mm-hmm.
So I could actually like look up wine costs in Belgium to see like how it would compare to what I'm spending here. Or like let's say I'm a carb person. I really enjoy eating.
Mm-hmm.
So then I can say, okay, what is the cost? But it lets you get like super granular and
Love that.
what you like, and what you actually spend your money on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
I appreciate that advice because it really is practical instead of being like, okay, well, I think I want to do these things. But what do you actually today spend your money on? And then even thinking about it, like, if you know that you want to go to a country and you know that you want to live a much more extravagant life than what
Mm-hmm.
you're currently living, um,
Yeah.
and in those things too. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And with any travel budget, excuse me, whether you're moving or not, I always like to add a buffer.
Mm,
So to any travel budget I plan before a trip, I always like to add like 20%.
mm,
So I think that call out of maybe being a little bit of a more treat yourself trip, add 30%. Do you know what I mean?
mhm.
Just to make sure that you feel comfortable and feel safe and you feel well resourced in case something were to happen.
Oh, I love it. I was feeling the 20% budget, but buffer, but 30, that sounds even better. Yes, yes, yes. Great. And then any like recommendations for how to prepare for unexpected costs? I know you mentioned the buffer, but are there ways to
Mhm.
kind of budget for things that are unexpected? Like any tools that people should use? Should they say, okay, well, here they usually use public transportation versus this, so maybe I can
Mhm.
budget that way. Any ideas?
Oh, I think public transportation is a great one.
Mm,
Um, I think when you do your initial research before you take your trip, definitely keep in mind those unexpected costs that you're calling out.
mm,
So 100%. Okay, public transportation. I know that a weekly Metro pass is 50 bucks. But I also know it's a slip of paper that's the size of a quarter. Maybe I should save another 50 bucks in case I lose it.
yes, yes. Ah,
That was my biggest frustration on our trip to Paris. I was like, wait a minute, this little tiny piece of paper is worth 65 euros. Are you sure we couldn't make this a little bit sturdier? Are you sure?
uh-huh.
So yeah, things like that. Definitely you can kind of get an idea of, oh, if I need to replace X, how much would that cost me?
Mm,
Oh, you know what? It looks like I'm not going to be able to park my car where I thought. Okay, how do I need to compensate for getting around?
mm,
Or, oh, you know what? This grocery store that I had planned to use actually is closed because of something happened. Okay, now I need to go a little bit more farther or check out some other stores.
mm,
So again, aligning yourself with those everyday amenities will highlight those things that you should put in those unexpected costs for in your budget.
Yeah. I just am thinking about like so many times I've traveled to new places and they were amazing.
Yeah.
So I anticipated not spending as much on like festivals,
Mm-hmm.
food at the festival, or gelato, or beverages, like
Yes.
so that is really, really great.
Oh yeah, that buffer comes in handy.
Oof, that buffer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what research we should do before visiting a potential new home.
Yeah. So I would align with some of the things we've talked about, like the cost of living research, making sure that you understand how much rent, utilities, and also any type of supplies you might need are going to be, making sure that you tap into what your taxes might be, or even like local government things that are going on that might impact your cost of living. Um, I also, too, like, I really want to highlight, don't forget about the weather. Um, it can be really catastrophic to your trip if you don't prepare for, oh, it's the hottest summer that we've had in 20 years, which, it happens, or some common natural disasters that your area might be susceptible to. Those can be really traumatic. So we want to make sure we prepare for those. Some of my favorite things to poke around in are going to be definitely like the neighborhoods and the culture. So I like to research, okay, how is the cultural mix? How's the diversity? What are the demographics? And then, of course, we don't want to forget about like hospitals and make sure you have access to the doctors you need.
hmm Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I remember living in Germany and I'm from Connecticut. So I'm like, yeah, I'm used to snow. That's no problem. But it was a whole different situation because, in Connecticut, we don't necessarily like, unless you're like skiing or doing something
Mhm.
specific, not just hanging out in the snow.
Yeah.
And I remember like, oh my gosh, I am freezing to a friend of mine, and she was like, there's no such thing as bad weather. You're just not dressed properly. I was like, oh,
Oh, okay.
all right, well, let me figure out how to dress properly because I guess we're hanging out in this.
That's wild. Just like hanging out outside in feet of snow.
And I mean, by like year three, the Christmas markets even became like my favorite place. And when it was, I remember we had like a warm December, and I was like, that's great, it's warm, and everyone was like, no, it needs to be colder. Like, what is this? I'm like, great, it's great, is what it is, because we're standing outside. But I was the only one who thought that. But
Oh
yes,
my
weather
goodness.
considerations are huge, and even thinking about like if you have like seasonal depression,
Hmm.
it's a place that doesn't get lots of sun.
Yeah.
Those are things that you can really, really tap into while you're there for an extended period. Great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I even too, I think one thing I like to do on a trip, but definitely would do more of if I'm exploring living there, is tapping into local businesses.
Mm,
Especially once you've picked out a city or an area in the town that you would like to live, make those connections early. Like, why
mm,
not? Because that's one thing, if anything, I found. And of course, we've all heard stories of, oh, people there aren't nice. 95% of people are very nice and would love to talk to you.
mhm,
So make those connections early. Um, you don't have to be there forever for you to introduce yourself or tell share something about yourself and make those connections with local businesses.
mm. I feel like that tip right there changed my experiences every single place I've ever lived. There is
Yeah.
nothing like becoming a regular.
Yes, I love
And
that.
especially in a different country, you don't have your family there necessarily, you
Yeah.
might not have your core people. So when you can be like a regular at a place and you walk in and people are like, hey, and start
Hmm.
conversing. You ask about things that because they know you. There's
Mhm.
like no experience like it, and I feel like that is what allowed me to feel at home
Mhm.
all the places I've lived. Even for like in Belgium, I always from year what 3 on, and all of the neighboring like the places that I would always go in the morning for like coffee or for like breakfast or my doctors or like where my son was a sickly baby, so we are
Mm.
besties with the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Every year since then, they have gotten Christmas cards. Like,
Oh, I love that.
yes. And then they started sending them. At first, it was like, "Oh, yay, we got your Christmas card." Now they send them back.
Oh,
Like, hey, we started a tradition. This is great.
that's
But
amazing.
I appreciate that so much because I feel like that is such a game changer that often goes overlooked. So,
And they have the tea, like they know about that weird spot that you shouldn't park in, or they know about like that weird subway station that everyone avoids, and so should you.
yes, and there's a reason.
There's a reason. So yeah, they're a great resource for you.
Mhm. Yes. So what do you think are some red flags that people might look for during this trial period to determine whether or not a place is a good fit for them?
Oh yeah. I would definitely, and this is probably my number one, like listen to your gut.
Mm,
You're in a new space. Yes, you may be feeling uneasy, of course, but if something doesn't feel right, question it.
mm,
Yes, you're in a new place, and of course, be respectful, of course. But if something doesn't feel quite right, ask questions, investigate. Um, Maybe make a note for yourself to research it later if you're not comfortable asking questions at those times. But yes, you're in a new space and don't just take everything for what it is. If you're really going to be living there and you're really actually considering that move and that commitment, trust your gut and don't forget it.
mm,
So if someone tells you something and it doesn't sound quite right, oh, you're looking at apartments, and someone's like, oh, well, there's an extra fee for this, and you've never heard of that fee. Question it, research it, get a second opinion. If you're checking out and someone happens to notice that you are not from there and the prices don't look right, number one, don't shop at that place ever again.
mm,
But number two, protect your budget and question it.
mm,
Um, and of course, like be very mindful and cautious of your safety. Make sure that if you're traveling with other people, they know where you are, and you just stay connected and keep those things in mind.
Question it. I think that can be so difficult. Like when you're in
Mm-hmm.
a place and you're like, but I love the be respectful part. This
Yeah, for sure.
this is so stupid. Why? And I'm like, I am not with them.
Right?
I do not know who they are because not they treat me badly because they're crazy. I love the be respectful part, but questioning it, I think that can be so hard when you're in a place and you're like, I guess this is just how it is, but
Yeah.
trust yourself more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That gut, that
Yeah.
is so, so important. Okay, and I wanted to jump back up for a second to like budget.
Oh yeah, love it.
And so, um, and also like local connections. So can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on like how to balance affordability with like comfort and authenticity during a trial stay, and then also like how to begin building those connections with the local community? So you mentioned introducing
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Are there other ways to go about doing that too?
Yeah, I love that. I'll do your second question first because I love that one. I really do. Um, I one of the things I like to do if I'm spending a significant amount of time in a place is join their city's like social media or even some type of newsletter they have, so you can get a little bit more tapped into events and
Mhm.
festivals and just things that are happening in the area because those will very typically be where a lot of local vendors are, or you'll meet other people in the community, or you may even meet other people that have just moved there like you. Um, I love how amazingly how many people are moving around and moving to places. And it's so funny, me being from Pittsburgh, I have traveled so many places, and it's just weird. I 9 times out of 10 will meet someone from Pittsburgh there.
It's
um,
magnetic.
right? Something like it's crazy. We all have so much more in common than we do like in difference. So I think tapping into those hot spots where everyone comes out and kind of celebrates the local culture and celebrates local businesses is where I would start if you're looking to meet some of those local people and local vendors. And then what was your second question again?
So the second one
Or
was,
your first one?
the first one was any tips for how to balance like affordability with like comfort and authenticity during a trial visit?
Yeah, I think that balance is super key. And again, like realigning ourselves to, okay, I'm not on vacation. I'm actually trying to experience the community. Now, that doesn't mean you can't treat yourself because you would if you were at home.
Mhm.
So I think it's really about, okay, being intentional about the things that you do and you put in your test the city itinerary is where I would focus on is like, okay, I want to make sure that one part of the day I want to just kind of wander and explore the neighborhood. But you know what? There's this new restaurant that's been on my list for the last 3 years. Yes, it's a little pricey. I'm gonna put it in my budget and I'm gonna go.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely balancing that. I would definitely lean more on the side of authenticity. Um, and especially where you decide to kind of stay for your trip, definitely keep that in mind, whether it be a hotel or an Airbnb or no matter where it may be. Just try to align yourself more to, I'm not on a trip, I'm not on a trip, I'm not on a trip. And I think that'll really steer you well.
hmm Great, great. And let's say someone is like, okay, I'm ready to make that move to Zimbabwe, but they've never actually been to Zimbabwe.
Oh.
What would you say to convince them and encourage them to take these like little trial trips
Mhm.
before they make that move?
Yeah, I would say you moving is a commitment to yourself, but also a commitment to your current friends and family.
Mm.
Um, Time, I think, is our most valuable asset. So we plan and we prepare to spend our time wisely. Um, if you really are committing to this idea you have to live in Zimbabwe, number one, that sounds amazing. And I love that for you. That sounds great. But don't you want to have a great experience as opposed to fly by the seat of your pants experience? And I hope your answer is yes. You do want to have an intentional one. And I think really bringing people back to that reality, to that sense of place, of intention, lets them make the right call and say, you know what? I actually do really want to be home for the holidays. Maybe a 2 week trip is plenty.
Mm.
Or, oh, you know what? I actually have a few things that I'm working on. I'm not ready yet to transition in my place of work. You know what? I'm going to plan a week here and plan a week there and here. I think multiple trips is a great idea, to be honest, especially if you're moving to an area that has a lot of weather seasonality.
Mm.
Um, and or even just like holidays and different events that they have. I think testing it out intentionally will only be a positive for you.
Great. Love. So if anyone wanted to learn more about the work that you do, is there any
Mhm.
place that they can go to follow you or to connect with you?
Yeah. So from our podcast today, I made a brand new travel guide.
Yay.
And I'm so happy that you'll have that and it'll be available. So yeah, we made a whole PDF specifically just for this podcast about all of these awesome tips and tricks and things to research when you're planning a trip to see if you want to live in a new city. So I love making PDF guides a part of my travel blog. So you will have that, and this one is specifically for this podcast. So I had so much fun making it.
Awesome. Yay.
So yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram, Lids Life Skills, and then I also have a website, www.lidslifeskills at or lidslifeskills.com. But yes, Lydia is my name, so it's LYDSLIFESKILS. And then I self-published a travel skills handbook.
Yes.
It's about 100 pages, and it dives into everything that you can jump into when you want to plan a trip or learn about doing something new travel wise, budgeting, packing, identification, budgeting, all of this great, wonderful stuff. And that I self-published through Amazon, but you can actually get it at Barnes and Noble, and it's also on Google Books as well.
Yay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Please make sure that you connect with Lydia
yeah,
and all the great resources that she has. So thank you so much, Lydia, for joining us today. We had
absolutely.
a good time chatting with you.
No, thank you so much, Raquel. This has been amazing.
And thank you all for tuning in. So if you have enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends, subscribe, leave a review. And if any of you are interested in moving abroad and need some help making your move abroad roadmap, I am here to help support you on your personal journey. So head to my website at www.yourbestlifeabroad.com for information on how to turn your dream of moving abroad into a reality. So thank you again for joining us today. And please remember, there is no time like the present to live your best life abroad. Bye.